What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to the madness. Today we're going to be doing a tone hunting tutorial where we're going to be talking about how to get some organ tones on the guitar. This has been a requested kind of thing for me. I've got about, 15 requests in my email to kind of share this tone with them, and I have. However, now I can teach you all how to make it for yourself. And I think that's going to be pretty great for all you guys that want to do some funky sounding stuff. Now let me give you an example of what it sounds like. Now it's pretty funky sounding, as you can hear, but without any further delay, let's jump right into this thing and show you exactly how to get what exactly I just showed you. Alright guys, thank you for joining me. Appreciate you coming and checking this out. I think it'll be definitely worth your time. If you want, slap the like and subscribe beforehand and then watch all the way to the end so you can get every little detail about how to get this organ tone on your guitar. So, we'll start with the input, we'll go right through all the way to the end, we'll see the parallel reverb and come back through a cab right to the output. So the input, there's really not much changed here. We got to set the threshold down to 50 dB or negative 50 dB. The ratio is at 1.5, attacks at 2 milliseconds, and the release is at 20 milliseconds. Now the reason, generally when you start the inputs up here, it has it cranked down to negative 60 dB. This is kind of eliminates some of the possible noise, but nothing's really changed here too much. So these are pretty standard values, except for this release is at 20. And that's pretty important to note, but the attack's at 2 milliseconds, so 1/10 of the attack, or the release is the attack's setting, and the ratio is set to 1.5 instead of 2. All right, let's move on to the compression. So we've got a studio feed-forward compressor. Now the real purpose of this is so that we can maintain a relative good amount of compression. We want the lows to be able to boost it up to the reasonable level while not allowing the high end hard pick attacks oversaturate the receiving end. And that's what this knee is for. The knee type is set to medium hard. It could be set to hard, but I just don't really like the hard transition ends up typically being, so I like the smooth. So that's just my personal preference. But right now the threshold is set to negative 40 dB, ratio is set to 6. Attack time is 3.735 milliseconds, and the release time is set really low at 10.76 milliseconds. Auto attenuation release or attack and release is on, and auto makeup is on. Detector type is root mean squared, which is what RMS stands for. You type medium hard, look ahead time is 0, so that means it's not on. So in the side chain, we've got the block L and R for the side chain, and then we've got basically nothing really going on over here. The parametric EQ is not really changed at all, and then the low cut is not, it's set all the way to the bottom. High cut's actually set to 13.5 instead of 20. So all right, let's move forward. So now we've got the pitch shifter, which is pretty important here. This is actually the main beef of the tone. This is how you get the kind of sounds that you're looking for. Now we've got a quad chromatic type. Shift is set to negative 12 on the first one, on voice 1, with an 8 count detune and 22.5% level. 100% on this one, 75, 40. The pan is set to 0 on all of these. Shift 2 is set to 19, detune 0. Voice 3 is set to 0, negative 8 count for the detune though, with 40% level. Voice 4 is set to 24, so that's quite a bit of, technically I think 3 octaves above the first of the initial kind of tone, and then detune set to 0, level is 75%. So now let's go ahead and check out the delay. Now notice that the low cut and the high cut has actually changed here. The low cut is set to 150, high cut set to 4000. So you've kind of got like a little bit of a low pass filter built into this pitch block right now. So it's actually kind of like a more of a mid kind of thing. It's got some lows attached, but the 4000 is kind of creeping into the main beef of the tone spectrum where you see guitar tones. So in here you got nothing tinkered with, everything set to 0. Master and mod, temperament is just instead of equal. Tracking is block in, tracking is fast, and tracking is set to 6. LFO rate 0.1, but the LFO tempo, so this is actually not being used at all. Input, output, or input mode is mono, so there's no stereo going into this thing. So that's the entirety of the pitch block. Let's keep on moving forward, y'all. We got a lot more to cover. So now we're at the filter block. This is kind of like a low pass filter. You know, just generally, I guess it's kind of mostly just a band pass, but you're kind of eliminating the highs here, as you can see. Everything below 6.3 kilohertz is actually rejected. And that's an important note. Obviously, type is low pass, second order, so that means this ramp down is a little bit less steep than it could be at 4. Obviously, there's a little bit more of a hump. As soon as you increase the order, humps tend to be more prevalent. So we got the second order here. Frequency cutoff is set to 2.175 kilohertz, which is 2175 hertz. The Q is set to 1.135, which means that's why it's got this wideness about the Q. If I drop this down a bit, obviously the Q gets wider. So 1.135. All right, there we go. Now the gain is set to 0. The low cut is 20 up to 20 kilohertz. That has nothing changed. And the pan left and right is set all the way to left and right. No phase inversions. And then the LFO is off. So you don't have to worry about this thing at all. So that's the entirety of the filter. Let's go ahead and check out the drive. Now the drive, you didn't hear that when I was doing the little demonstration in the beginning. The reason for this is because I just wanted you to hear the pure tone. This adds some fuzziness to it. Actually, I'll show you that right now. Don't mind the artifacts of what's going on here. All right, check this out. All right, so now you've heard that. Put this thing back real quick. As you can hear, it gets pretty wild there. All right, so let's keep on moving forward. So on here, the gain is set to 7, bass is set to 5, treble set to 5. So these things aren't touched, but the gain is set at 7. Input select is left and right, which is pretty default on most cases. Level is set to 4, mix is set to 100. All right, so let's check out the tone. So we got the bass and mid set to middles, as you've expected. Mid frequency 650. High mid 0, treble 5, which is default. Low and highs are set to default. Graphic EQ set to default. Advanced. Now you got 1N4148s for the diode types. That's pretty important. Make sure you get that. Quantity of diode is 2. Once again, we set the diode type over here. So we got the positive and the negative. So it's polarity. It's distinguishing here. And then we've both got the quantity set to 2. The bias is slightly above middle, which is at 0.010. The bass response is set to 5, dry level is 100, slew rate is at 6.15. Now slew rate generally means that how fast is it capturing the voltage changes. Now you don't really need to know too much about that. If you want, you can Google it. I just recommend not. It'll bore you a little bit. So this is right here, you got the lo-fi, bit reduce, it's not really doing anything. All right, so that's all of that. That's the jam ray, that's the drive. Next is the rotary, which is a very important one because that's what's causing that fluctuation, that Leslie kind of sound. You want that for an organ to me, you just want it. So the rate is set to 1.6 hertz, so 1.6 times per second is fluctuating. So tempo is 0, high depth is 25%, and then the high level is 0, high time constant is 0.8 seconds, rotor length is 25%, and mic spacing is 50%. These parameters can be shifted to your own liking. Obviously this is just the way I like it. Drive is set to 5, low depth is set to 25, so it's the same as the high. And the low time constant is 2. Low rate mult, or the low rate multiplier is 0.9, mic distance is 0.1. And that is that for the rotary. If you want to learn more about the rotary, I've got an entire video on the rotary block, and where I go pretty in detail about all of this stuff. No big deal. Volume pan. So this is increasing the volume up to 9.25 on this with a bit of pan here. We got the log, or the volume taper set to log 20 alpha. Sometimes that can be, any of these. It could be 30 alpha, 10. A lot of times I see it on 10, but right now it's set to 20. So that's that. Now, right here is kind of important because we go into parallel with a reverb. So we've got dry signal going to the cab as well as a reverbed cab. This is an important distinguishing part because it's not one or the other. You have both, and you have to you're getting a little bit of reverb and you're getting a little bit of just dry signal. So you're kind of messing around with what the cab is actually inputting, obviously. So here we go with the reverb. We got the quality set to high and the type is set to a medium cathedral. Organs, I thought, were generally in cathedrals, so that's why I put it there. You know, you could have it in a cave. You could have an organ in a cave if you really want. Do whatever you want. This is really kind of up to you, but I just personally thought it sounded pretty good. All right. Onward and upward. Quality is set to high. Time is set to 3.5 with a size of 55. Echo density is set to 8, which is the max. So we got, you know, I could set this to ultra high, but my CPU is actually not too bad. So maybe I will slap it up to ultra high, cut into that processing power a little bit. Stack and hold is off. And most of this stuff hasn't been touched. The crossover frequency, though, this stuff is, as you can see. This one's set to 600, which is kind of the standard around what we've been doing, right? A lot of things are set to like 650, stuff like that, I believe. On the drive, it was set to 650, something like that. Either way. So we got the crossover frequency at 600 hertz. Low frequency decay time is at 1.2. High frequency decay time is at 0.4. And then the input gain is set to 15%. The spread is set a little bit to the right, as you can see. It's at 100% level or whatever, but the spread is a little bit off. So it's set to 100, which is interesting that it's over here. So that's what we got. Advanced, early level is negative 18 dB. Early diffusion is at 30%. Early differential time is 40%. Early decay is 50%. Mic spacing is 20%. All right, onward. Late level 0, late input mix 90%, whopping. And then we've got input diffusion is at 0.0, input differential time is at 60%, and wall diffusion is at 100%. Now, you might be thinking, damn, this is a lot of stuff, but what we do to get good tones, right? So keep on moving. EQ, we've got a little bit of a, it's kind of just cutting a little bit of lows, cutting off a chunk of highs. You basically got the mid band setting at the 0 point. Really not much here, but let's go ahead and give this thing all of its readouts like I said I would. 20 hertz, 200 hertz, 0.707. Don't mind my inability to talk here today. We've got 800 hertz at frequency 2, the Q the same. Gain is set to 0. High frequency cuts at 2000 with a 6 dB per octave decline here. So keep on moving. Modulation and ducking. No ducking going on here. And then we've got the depth on the modulator set to 20% at the rate of 0.2 hertz. So every 5 seconds, we've got an entire modulation going here. LFO phase is set to 90 degrees. Pitch shifting. We've got no pitch shifting. So that's why we've got a pitch block. So we didn't use this thing at all. Next thing, cab. What we've got here is a 2 set of 2x2x12 tweed double 421 cone cap TS. And this is what we've got on them. We've got low slope and high slopes both set to 12. Input mode is stereo because we've got this reverb coming in. And then we've got the cab more, nothing. Preamp is not really being used, but this is right here. So low cuts at 80 hertz, high cuts at 6500 at 12 dB per octave as the filter goes. We got room and air, which isn't being used. The room size doesn't matter because the room level is not being used. All of this stuff is set to basically nothing, so you don't got to worry about all that. And the air is set to 0%, so you don't got to worry about all that either. The alignment. So we've got really nothing going on here, so because you can see the distance is set to 0, and that's that. So that is the entirety of my organ block or my organ settings, to go. You can completely recreate this on your own now. You could have done it as as I talked through it. It probably would have been pretty easy for you to follow along. I hope you enjoyed this. Hope you got something out of it. If you wouldn't mind, if you make any sort of sounds out of it, it'd be really cool to hear what you make. And, I'd really appreciate you guys, just throwing a link at me or something like that. If you make a YouTube video with it, that'd be super cool to see. All right, guys, but that is all from me for today. If you liked it, subscribe. That'd be great. Helps me out. Helps me make more content for you guys, and give me some inputs. You know what I mean? Really like it. But until then, I'll catch you all on the flippy floppy, y'all. Ciao for now.